Hi Year 3! I hope you all had a really nice half term. So this term I'm carrying on with the book Mr. Sink, and we got to chapter 6, which is called Soap Dodgers. The next morning, Chloe pulled open her curtains. Why was there a giant O and a giant V stuck to her window? She went outside in her dressing gown to investigate. Vote Crumb was spelled out in giant letters across the windows of the house. Elizabeth the cat pattered out with a rosette with the words on Crumb for MP attached to her jewelled encrusted collar. Then Annabel came skipping out of the house with an air of self-congratulatory joy that was instantly annoying. Where are you going? Asked Chloe. As her favourite daughter, Mother has entrusted me with the responsibility of putting these leaflets through every door in the street. She's standing to be a Member of Parliament, remember? Let me see that, said Chloe, reaching out to grab one of the leaflets. The two warring sisters had long since dispensed with please and thank yous. There's the sisters arguing. Annabel snatched it back. I'm not wasting one on you, she snarled. Let me see. Chloe pulled out the leaflet from Annabel's hand. There were some advantages to being the older sister. Sometimes you could get your brute force. Annabel huffed off with the rest of the leaflets. Chloe walked back into the house, studying it. Her slippers were moistening with the dew. Mother was always trying to go on about how she would run the country, but Chloe found the whole subject so dreary and dull that her imagination would float away into La La Land whenever the subject came up. On the front of the leaflet was a photograph of Mother looking incredibly serious, with her finest pearls around her neck, and her hair so waxy with spray that it would become a fireball if you lit a match into it. Inside was a long list of her policies. 1. A curfew would be introduced to ensure that all children under 30 are not allowed out after 8 p.m. and are preferably in bed with lights out by 9. 2. The police would be given new powers to arrest people for talking too loudly in public. 3. Litterbugs to be deported. 4. The wearing of leggings to be outlawed in public areas as they are extremely common. 5. The national anthem to be played in the town square every hour on the hour. Everyone must be upstanding for this. Being in a wheelchair is no excuse for paying your respects to Her Majesty. 6. All dogs to be kept on leads at all times, even indoors. 7. Socks must be worn by everyone attending local swimming pools, whether they have verrucas or not. This should cut down on the chance of any verruca infection to less than 0. 8. The Christmas pantomime to be discontinued due to the constant lewdness of humour, jokes about bottoms, for example. There is nothing funny about a bottom. We all have a bottom and we know full well what comes out of the bottom and what sound can be made from the bottom. 9. Church going on a Sunday morning to be compulsory, and when you do not go, you have to sing the hymns properly, not just open and close your mouths when the organs play. 10. Mobile telephone devices to only have classical music ringtones from now on, like Mozart or Beethoven, and one of the other ones, not just the latest pop song with the hit parade. 11. Unemployed people to not be allowed to claim benefit anymore. Scum only have themselves to blame and are just the plain ideal. Why should we pay for them to sit at home all day appearing or watching the Jeremy Kyle show? 12. Giant bronze statues of the Royal Prince Edward and his wife Sophie, Countess of Wessex, should be in the local park. 13. Tattoos on anyone but visiting sailors to be banned. Tattoos can be dropped off anonymously at the police station without any prosecution. 14. Fast food burger restaurants to introduce plates, cutlery and table services, and stop serving burgers and french fries and nuggets. And for those apple pies that are always too hot in the middle. The local library to stock only the works of Beatrix Potter, apart from the tale of Mr. Jeremy Fisher, as the sequence when the frog Mr. Fisher is swallowed by a trout is far too violent even for adults. 16. Football games in the local park are a nuisance, and from now on only imaginary balls to be used. 17. Only nice films to be offered for rental in Blockbusters. That is to say, films about posh people from the olden days who are too shy to even hold hands. 18. To combat the growing problem of hoodies, all hooded tops should have the hoods cut off. 19. Video games rot the brain. Any video games or computer games or consoles or whatever those stupid things are called to be played only between 4 and 4:01 p.m. daily. 20. Finally, all homeless people or soap dodgers are to be banned from our streets. They are a menace to society and, more importantly, they stink. Chloe slumped down on the sofa when she read the last statement. There was a loud squeak as she did so. Mother had insisted on keeping the plastic covers of the sofa and the armchair that they had arrived in, so as to keep them immaculate. They were indeed still immaculate, but it meant your bum got really hot and sweaty. What about my new friend, Mr. Stink? Chloe thought. What's going to happen to him? And what about the Duchess? If he's banned from the streets, where on earth is he going to go? And then, a moment later, wow, my bum is going to get incredibly hot and sweaty. She taved away at her way sadly back up the stairs to her room. Sitting on her bed, she stared out of the window. Because she was too shy and too awkward, Chloe didn't make friends easily. Now her newest friend, Mr. Stink, was going to have to leave the town, maybe forever. She stared out through the glass at the deep blue, endless air. Then, just before her eyes lost focus into the infinite sky of nothing, she looked down the answers. The answer was the end of the garden sitting back at her, the shed. So chapter 7, a bucket in the corner. This operation had to be top secret. Chloe waited until darkness fell, then led Mr. Stink and the Duchess silently down her street before slipping through the side gate in her garden. It's just a shed, said Chloe apologetically, and they entered his new abode. I'm sorry there's no ensuite bathroom, but there is a bucket in the corner, there just behind the lawnmower. You can use that if you need to go in the night. Well, this is unimaginably kind of you, young Miss Chloe. Thank you, said Mr. Stink, smiling broadly. Even the Duchess seemed to bark thank you, or at least cheers. Now, continued Mr. Stink, are you sure your mother and father don't mind me being in here? I would hate to be felt unwelcomed guest. Chloe gulped nervously about the lie that she was about to come out of her mouth. No, they don't mind at all. They're just both very, very busy people, and they apologise that they weren't able to be here right now to meet you in person. Chloe had carefully picked the right time to settle Mr. Stink in. She knew her mother was out campaigning for the election, and Dad was picking Annabelle up from her sumo wrestling class. Well, I would love to meet them both, said Mr. Stink, and see what people turned out to be such a wonderfully generous and thoughtful daughter. This will be so much warmer than my bench. Chloe smiled shyly at the compliment. Sorry, there are all these old cardboard boxes here, she said. She started to move them out the way to give him some room to lie down. Mr. Stink gave her a hand, lifting some of the boxes on top of each other. When she got to the bottom box, Chloe paused. Poking out was the top was an electric guitar. She explained it for a moment, puzzled, then rummaged through the box and found a pile of old CDs. They were all the same stacks and stacks of an album entitled Hell for Leather by the Serpents of Doom. Have you ever heard of this band? She asked. I don't really know any music past 1958. There she is looking at the CDs that she's found. Chloe studied the picture on the cover for a moment. Superimposed in the front of it was a drawing of a giant snake stood 4 long-haired leather jacket types. Chloe's eyes fixed on the guitar player, who looked an awful lot like her dad, only with a mess of curly black hair. "I don't believe it," said Chloe. "That's my dad." She hadn't any idea that her dad had ever had a perm, let alone been in a rock band. She didn't know which one was more shocking, the idea of him not being bald or the idea of him playing electric guitar. "Really?" said Mr. Stink. "I think so," said Chloe. "It looks like him anyway." She was still studying the album cover with a curious combination of pride and embarrassment. "Well, we all have secrets, Miss Chloe. Now, what shall I do if I require a pot of tea or a round of sausage sandwiches on white bread with HP sauce on the side? Is there a bell I should ring?" Chloe looked at him a little surprised. She hadn't realised she was going to have to feed him as well as shelter him. "No, there's no bell," she said. You can see that window up there. That's my bedroom." "Ah, yes. Well, if you need anything, why don't you flash this old bicycle light up at my window? Then I can come down and, take your order." "Perfection," exclaimed Mr. Stink. Being in the confined space of the shed with Mr. Stink was beginning to make it difficult for Chloe to breathe. The smell was especially bad today. It was stinky, even by Mr. Stink's stinky standards. "Would you like to have a bath before my family get back?" Chloe said hopefully. The Duchess looked up at her master with a look of desperate hope in blinking eyes. It was the stink that made her blink. "Let me think." Chloe smiled at him. "Actually, I'll leave it for this month, thank you." "Oh," said Chloe, disappointed. "Is there anything I can get you right now?" "Is there anything afternoon tea menu, perhaps?" asked Mr. Stink. "A choice of scones, cakes and French pasties?" No," said Chloe, "but I could bring you a cup of tea and biscuits, and we should have some cat food that I could bring for the Duchess." "I'm pretty sure the Duchess is a dog, not a cat," pronounced Mr. Stink. "I know, but we only have a cat, so we've only got cat food." "Well, maybe you could pop into Raj's shop tomorrow and buy the Duchess some tiny tins of dog food. Raj knows the brand she likes." Mr. Stink rummaged in his pockets. Here's a 10p piece. That you can keep the change." Chloe looked in her hand. Mr. Stink had actually placed an old brass button there. "Thank you so much, young lady," he continued, "and please don't forget to knock when you return in case I'm getting changed into my pyjamas." "What have I done?" thought Chloe as she made her way across the lawn back to the house. Her head was buzzing with more imaginary life stories for her new friend, but none of them seemed quite right. Was he an astronaut who had fallen to Earth in shock and lost his memory? Or perhaps he was a convict who escaped from prison after serving 30 years for crime that he didn't commit? Or even better, a modern-day pirate who had been forced by his comrades to walk the plank into shark-infested waters, but against all odds swam to safety? One thing she knew for sure, that he really did whiff. Indeed, she could still smell him as she reached the back door. The plants and the flowers in the garden seemed to have wilted the smell, and they were now leaning away from the shed as if they were trying to avert their stamens. At least he was safe, thought Chloe, and warm and dry, if only for tonight. When she got to her room, she looked out of the window. The light was flashing already. "All butter Highland shortbread biscuits, if you have them, please," called up Mr. Stink. "Thank you so much." That was chapter 6 and 7. I hope you enjoyed. See you tomorrow for chapter 8 and 9.